She's dying in front of everyone. Rich. Powerful. Untouchable. And not one person gives a damn. They're filming her death for social media likes. Then this guy appears, broke, invisible, the kind society throws away. He saves her life in seconds. What she does to him next will leave you speechless. The twist in this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about human nature. The late afternoon heat blazed across the outdoor terrace of Cascade Garden, where Rebecca Sterling sat choking on her $30 halibut. The corporate billionaire clutched her throat, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Around her, fellow diners pulled out their phones, recording her desperate struggle instead of helping. Some whispered to each other about whether they should get involved. Others just watched, mesmerized by the spectacle of someone so powerful reduced to helplessness in seconds. Derek Carter had just finished making a pharmaceutical delivery to the medical clinic next door to Cascade Garden when he noticed the commotion on the restaurant's outdoor terrace. He was walking back to his delivery truck, parked on the street, when he spotted the crowd gathering around something on the exclusive restaurant's patio. At 36, Derek possessed the calm bearing of someone accustomed to high-pressure situations, though his casual work uniform gave no hint of his distinguished service record as a field medic who had completed 4 deployments in Iraq before transitioning to civilian life to care for his daughter. Derek immediately recognized the emergency unfolding before him. Through the wrought iron railing that separated the upscale restaurant from the public sidewalk, he could see a woman in expensive clothing clutching her throat in obvious distress. His combat medical training activated as he observed her increasingly frantic attempts to clear what appeared to be a blocked airway. Without a moment's hesitation, he dropped his clipboard and delivery bag, vaulted over the decorative railing, and approached her swiftly, his mind automatically cycling through the life-saving procedures he'd mastered during years of battlefield medicine and maintained through required workplace safety certifications. Positioning himself behind Rebecca, Derek wrapped his arms around her torso and located the correct hand placement just beneath her ribcage. He began delivering the abdominal compressions he'd performed numerous times during his military service and occasionally in civilian emergencies. The initial attempt yielded no results. The second compression proved unsuccessful. Derek recalibrated his positioning and force, drawing upon muscle memory developed in situations where split-second decisions determined whether someone lived or died. The fifth compression succeeded. The obstructing piece of halibut expelled from Rebecca's throat with force. She drew in deep, ragged breaths as her airway cleared completely. Her knees buckled slightly from the ordeal, and Derek supported her weight while carefully monitoring her recovery to ensure no secondary complications had developed. The entire incident had lasted fewer than 3 minutes, but it felt endless to Rebecca and the diners who had witnessed her near-death experience. As Rebecca's breathing steadied and normal color returned to her features, she turned to face the individual who had prevented what could have been a tragic outcome. She found herself looking at a tall, powerfully built man dressed in simple work clothing, his demeanor professional and composed despite having just executed a critical medical intervention. Fellow diners began gathering around, offering bottled water and expressing their amazement at how quickly the crisis had been resolved. The restaurant's general manager materialized with profuse apologies and offers of complimentary services, but Derek politely declined the attention. He conducted a final assessment to confirm Rebecca's stable condition, graciously accepted her stammered gratitude, and prepared to collect his delivery equipment and return to his work route. Neither Derek nor the assembled witnesses could have known that Rebecca Sterling commanded a business empire valued in the tens of billions, wielding influence that extended across international markets and government corridors. However, in those crucial moments, she was simply another human being whose survival depended entirely on a stranger's medical expertise and willingness to act. Rebecca insisted on getting Derek's contact details, explaining that she wished to express her appreciation more adequately once she had processed the trauma of her brush with death. Derek reluctantly provided his full name and telephone number, clearly uncomfortable with the continued attention and anxious to return to his delivery route. He remained completely unaware that this brief encounter would fundamentally alter his family's trajectory. Later that evening, Derek returned to his compact two-bedroom apartment where his 12-year-old daughter Maya was stationed at their kitchen table, schoolbooks and assignments arranged in neat stacks around her. Maya possessed her father's keen intellect and her deceased mother's infectious enthusiasm for learning, combining both parents' academic gifts with an insatiable curiosity that Derek encouraged despite their modest financial circumstances. Derek had been Maya's sole guardian since her mother's death from complications following routine surgery 2 years prior. Before Carmen's unexpected passing, Derek had been planning to utilize his GI Bill benefits to pursue a bachelor's degree in pre-medicine, with the goal of eventually becoming a physician assistant or pursuing medical school. His extensive combat medic training had given him advanced emergency medicine skills, but he needed formal civilian education credentials to transition into healthcare careers. However, suddenly becoming a single parent had necessitated focusing exclusively on providing immediate security for his devastated daughter. His position with Regional Pharmaceutical Logistics offered sufficient compensation to meet their essential needs and included comprehensive health coverage, but provided minimal opportunity for professional growth or advanced education. Derek had deliberately organized their existence around Maya's requirements, escorting her to school each morning before beginning his delivery route, collecting her each afternoon, and dedicating their evenings to homework assistance and academic projects. While sharing a modest dinner of chicken stir-fry and rice, Maya observed that her father appeared more contemplative than usual. She had developed an acute awareness of his emotional states during the years following her mother's death, instinctively recognizing when significant events had occurred even when he didn't immediately discuss them. "Something unusual happened on your route today, Dad?" she inquired, carefully arranging vegetables on her fork with the methodical attention she applied to most activities. Derek hesitated, weighing how much detail to share about the restaurant emergency. He had always maintained honest communication with Maya while shielding her from concerns beyond her influence. "I assisted someone who was choking at a restaurant downtown," he explained simply. "I was making a delivery nearby when I saw what was happening. It brought back memories of medical procedures I learned during my service overseas." Maya nodded thoughtfully, then posed the question that directly addressed something Derek had been deliberately avoiding for years. "Do you ever miss being a medic in the army, Dad? Like, when you could really help save people's lives every day?" Derek studied his daughter, amazed by her intuitive understanding of his inner conflict. "Sometimes I do, Princess. I found real satisfaction in knowing my training could make a life-or-death difference when people were in desperate situations. But raising you properly is the most meaningful work I could ever do." After Maya had gone to bed that night, Derek spent time reviewing current protocols for airway obstruction management, comparing his intervention with updated medical guidelines. He was pleased to confirm that he'd executed the procedure flawlessly, but the experience had stirred something within him that he'd been consciously suppressing since Carmen's death. For the first time in 2 years, Derek permitted himself to consider medicine not as an abandoned aspiration, but as expertise and capabilities he retained and that might potentially influence his future in ways he'd stopped allowing himself to envision. Meanwhile, Rebecca Sterling was experiencing a vastly different evening. After receiving clearance from her concierge physician and confirmation that she had sustained no permanent damage from the choking episode, she had directed her executive assistant to gather all available public information about Derek Carter. She needed to understand the background of the person who had preserved her life and demonstrated such exceptional competence under extreme pressure. The compiled data revealed someone who had made considerable personal sacrifices for his family while maintaining the expertise and character that had distinguished him as an outstanding military medic. Combat veteran with multiple commendations, widowed father, employed in work clearly beneath his qualifications and training, successfully raising a daughter who regularly achieved academic honors at her neighborhood school. Rebecca had accumulated her wealth by recognizing undervalued assets and investing in potential that circumstances had prevented from full development. Derek Carter embodied precisely the type of individual she had grown to value most highly, someone whose integrity had been proven through genuine hardship and who had consistently prioritized service and responsibility over personal ambition. She devoted the evening to consulting with her legal counsel about meaningful ways to demonstrate her gratitude that would genuinely benefit Derek and his daughter rather than merely offering financial compensation that might seem condescending or inappropriate. Rebecca had discovered through extensive philanthropic experience that truly helpful assistance addressed people's authentic needs and aspirations rather than imposing her assumptions about what they should desire. The telephone call arrived on Friday evening while Derek was assisting Maya with a history project about the civil rights movement. The woman who identified herself as Rebecca Sterling's personal coordinator explained that Ms. Sterling would greatly appreciate meeting with Derek at his earliest convenience to appropriately acknowledge his life-saving assistance earlier that week. The professional manner and the reference to scheduling through a personal coordinator indicated to Derek that Rebecca held more prominence than he'd initially understood, but he agreed to meet the following Saturday afternoon at an address that proved to be located in one of the city's most prestigious residential neighborhoods. Derek arrived at the Sterling mansion feeling thoroughly out of place among the professionally landscaped grounds and architectural elements that likely exceeded his lifetime earning potential. The residence itself exemplified contemporary luxury with expansive glass walls and artwork he recognized from museum catalogs he'd studied with Maya. Rebecca personally welcomed Derek at the entrance, guiding him to an intimate library where they could converse privately. She intended their discussion to feel like an exchange between peers rather than a formal acknowledgement from someone affluent to someone of limited means. You preserved my life without requiring any knowledge of my identity or what I might potentially offer in return, Rebecca said, settling into a leather chair facing Derek. I've been contemplating that reality all week. In my professional experience, that type of immediate response characterizes people who have been conditioned to prioritize others' welfare above their own security. Derek felt mildly uncomfortable with both the praise and the evident prosperity surrounding him, but he recognized that Rebecca appeared genuinely interested in comprehending his background rather than simply providing a reward and concluding their interaction. Military service trains you to react instinctively when someone requires medical intervention, he responded. Regardless of who had been in that situation, would have taken identical action. That's simply the appropriate response when you possess the knowledge to assist. Rebecca acknowledged this, recognizing the sincerity in Derek's explanation. That's precisely what distinguishes you from others. Most people would have hesitated, concerned about legal consequences or whether their intervention might worsen the situation. You acted because someone needed assistance, and you possessed the capabilities to provide it. Their conversation extended for nearly 2 hours. Rebecca learned about Maya's scholarly accomplishments, Derek's economic limitations, and his deferred medical school aspirations. Derek discovered details about Rebecca's corporate holdings, her charitable initiatives, and her sincere disappointment about remaining childless and lacking close family bonds that could have provided significance beyond professional achievements. Rebecca's proposal, when she eventually presented it, was strategically crafted to address Derek's genuine circumstances rather than offering standard financial aid. Instead of direct monetary assistance, she offered to supplement his GI Bill benefits through a private scholarship foundation that would cover additional living expenses, childcare support for Maya, and any educational costs not covered by his veterans' benefits. "I'm not attempting to alter your life contrary to your wishes," Rebecca clarified, "but I want to eliminate the remaining financial barriers that prevented you from pursuing your medical career goals. If you're interested in completing your pre-medical education and pursuing medical school, I can make that financially viable without requiring you to compromise Maya's security or your responsibilities as her father." Derek remained silent, comprehending that Rebecca was presenting him with something far more valuable than money, the chance to reclaim the career path that had been disrupted by tragedy and single parenthood. The scholarship would enable him to pursue his original ambition while remaining actively involved in Maya's childhood and teenage years. Rebecca's offer included provisions that demonstrated her comprehension of Derek's priorities. The program would permit him to attend medical school on a part-time basis while initially maintaining his current employment, ensuring that Maya's routine and financial stability wouldn't be compromised during his transition back to academic pursuits. Maya's response to discovering her father's opportunity combined excitement and pride that surprised Derek with its emotional depth. "Dad, you always wanted to work in medicine again?" she asked, her eyes shining with the kind of amazement children display when they learn their parents harbored aspirations beyond their present situations. "I did, sweetheart," Derek acknowledged, realizing he'd never completely explained to Maya why he'd altered his career plans following her mother's death. "I had to put my education plans on hold when your mom became ill, and afterward I needed to concentrate on caring for you, but I never stopped thinking about using my military medical training in a civilian healthcare career." Maya embraced Derek with intense affection, as though she were congratulating him for something he'd already achieved rather than something he was contemplating pursuing. "I think you'll be the most amazing doctor in the world," she declared, with the complete confidence children bring to their evaluations of their parents' potential. Derek began the intensive pre-medical preparation program that Rebecca had arranged, attending evening classes after work and weekend study sessions that gradually rebuilt his academic foundation in chemistry, biology, and anatomy while building upon his existing medical knowledge from military service. The transition was challenging, requiring him to balance his existing obligations with rigorous academic work, but it also reawakened intellectual excitement that he'd forgotten was possible. Rebecca maintained personal interest in Derek's advancement, not as a patron monitoring her investment, but as someone who derived genuine fulfillment from witnessing someone pursue significant objectives. She attended Derek's initial practice session for medical school admission interviews, providing feedback and encouragement that helped him express his motivation for returning to medicine following his military service and years as a single parent. 8 months into the program, Rebecca conducted a press conference to unveil a new medical education funding initiative, utilizing Derek's story as an illustration of the type of students her foundation sought to support. "I'm not focused on charity or conventional philanthropy," she informed journalists. "I'm committed to addressing missed opportunities and supporting individuals who were prevented from contributing to society by circumstances beyond their influence." The media coverage generated attention for Derek that he found uncomfortable, but it fulfilled Rebecca's broader objective of emphasizing how economic barriers prevented qualified individuals from entering medical professions where their abilities could benefit entire communities. Maya observed the press conference coverage with pride and curiosity, questioning her father about Rebecca in ways that revealed her developing understanding of how their lives had transformed since that afternoon at the restaurant. "Is Rebecca part of our family now?" Maya inquired, illustrating how children interpret relationships through emotional connections rather than formal definitions. "She's someone who genuinely cares about our future," Derek replied, acknowledging that Rebecca had indeed become family through her investment in their prospects and her authentic interest in their daily experiences. 1 year following the restaurant choking emergency that had united them, Derek was instructing basic life support and CPR certification courses at the local community college while completing his own accelerated pathway toward medical school admission. Maya frequently waited outside the classroom, observing her father demonstrate the same life-preserving techniques that had connected their family to Rebecca and transformed their life's direction. Rebecca had developed a routine of quietly attending Derek's teaching sessions, sitting in the back and watching how he combined technical knowledge with the kind of patient compassion that emerged from his own experiences as someone who had needed assistance during critical moments. She had never had children, but observing Derek balance fatherhood with his return to academic medicine provided her with a model for how professional success could coexist with meaningful personal relationships. Following one particularly successful class where Derek had helped a struggling community college student master the abdominal thrust technique, Rebecca approached him with a small leather portfolio that she'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the appropriate moment to present it. "I've been reflecting on something," Rebecca said, her voice carrying an unusual note of vulnerability that Derek had learned to recognize during their year of friendship. "I always regretted not having children, someone to continue not just my business but my values and my dedication to helping others. Today, watching you teach those students, I realize that I've been privileged to observe what genuine fatherhood looks like in practice." The portfolio contained a letter that Rebecca had written but never sent, expressing her gratitude not only for Derek's life-saving intervention but for how his presence in her life had provided her with new understanding of what constituted a meaningful legacy. Instead of focusing solely on business accomplishments and financial donations, she had begun to value relationships and personal connections that enriched lives in ways that couldn't be measured. Maya joined them in the empty classroom carrying her backpack and homework that she'd been completing while waiting for her father's class to conclude. The three of them had established comfortable routines around Derek's academic schedule, with Rebecca often providing tutoring assistance for Maya's advanced science courses and Maya teaching Rebecca card games and childhood activities that the wealthy older woman had never experienced. "Can we go get burgers?" Maya asked, displaying the kind of casual familiarity with Rebecca that indicated she'd stopped being impressed by wealth and started treating her as a member of their family unit. "Rebecca says she's never been to Murphy's and I told her they make the best milkshakes in the entire state." Their dinner at Murphy's Diner represented the kind of ordinary family moment that Rebecca had spent decades believing she was too busy or too focused on business success to experience. Sitting in a booth with vinyl seats, sharing onion rings and listening to Maya explain her geography project, Rebecca realized that the most valuable return on her investment in Derek's education had been gaining access to the kind of authentic relationships she'd never prioritized. Derek looked around the simple diner, watching Rebecca help Maya with homework while they waited for their order and understood that their unconventional family structure had given all three of them something they'd been missing. Rebecca had found the family connection she'd never made time to build. Maya had gained an additional adult who cared about her development and future, and Derek had reclaimed the career dreams he'd thought were permanently lost. The story concluded with the three of them walking home from dinner in the gentle evening light. Maya between the two adults, discussing her plans for summer camp, while Derek and Rebecca listened with the kind of attention that people give when they understand that ordinary moments are actually precious. None of them discussed money or business success or future plans, focusing instead on the simple pleasure of being together as people who genuinely cared about each other's well-being.